Breaking news now. The White House is planning to file a lawsuit to block the release of former National Security Advisor John Bolton's book because it still contains classified information. Now, the White House and the National Security Council say the book contains, quote, significant amounts of classification. A source telling Fox News that classified information is, quote, part and parcel of the entire storyline. The book is scheduled to be published on June 23rd. We'll find out just how much gusto Bolton and his publisher have, because that would be in violation of the law. Also breaking this weekend, Senator Ron Johnson says he wants to know why the Obama administration wanted to have former Ukrainian prosecutor Viktor Shokin fired in 2016 as he was investigating Burisma's corruption. The real question Johnson should be asking is why Joe Biden forced the ouster of Shokin, and whether it was because Biden's son Hunter was serving on the Burisma board at that time, or whatever policy decision had been made by the White House. Joining me now, Tom Fitton, the president of Judicial Watch. What do you make of that declaration about finding out what the purpose was by Senator Johnson wanting to find out what the purpose was of removing the prosecutor? I thought that part was pretty clear. Your thoughts?
Well, obviously it was designed to get rid of to protect the Biden clan from investigation. I'm pleased to see Senator Johnson raise the issue again. Look, the Democrats were so nervous about it, they were willing to commit a coup against the president to remove him from office for daring to ask questions about it. Now, we have Freedom of Information Act lawsuits and such asking for these records as well. The State Department has used the coronavirus as an excuse, though, to shut down FOIA. So conveniently, Joe Biden's been protected by these absurd lockdowns. Maybe Senate will have a little bit more juice in getting the information. I want to know also what the Justice Department is doing to investigate this. Supposedly Rudy Giuliani has given the Justice Department documents. What have they done with those documents? What have they done with the investigative leads created by Giuliani, John Solomon, and frankly, just what you read in the newspapers and what you're seeing in congressional testimony during the impeachment? I'm glad someone's asking questions, but Johnson may be late to the game, but welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also raises your point, raises the question of at what point does a investigative agency like the FBI, the Justice Department itself, at what point do they become complicit in an effort to overthrow a president by not investigating, not moving forthwith, and releasing information pertinent to the charge of trying to overthrow the president of the United States?
You can't separate Russiagate without investigating the Ukraine connection. The Ukrainians were in league with the Clinton gang and the Obama administration to try to subvert not only Trump's candidacy, but then his presidency. That needs to be investigated, and we've only investigated, of course, for political reasons, because Obama was running the show, and in many ways still is through the deep state, the Russia half of the interference in our elections, when in fact the Ukrainians were much more active and direct in trying to subvert our processes.
Let's go to the this most recent, in fact, breaking news. The Ukrainian officials intercepting a $6 million bribe attempt with the prosecutors. What is going on with these Ukrainians? Burisma apparently connected here. Your thoughts on what's going on and why is it going on still?
Well, Burisma was a corrupt organization, corrupt entity. That's why it was under investigation. So it's no surprise more evidence of corruption is coming out. Now, supposedly it's not tied to Hunter Biden, but as we've been discussing, few legal authorities have been asking questions about Hunter Biden. Still, where is Hunter? We want to know about the Ukraine. We know the Burisma. There are still issues that need to be investigated there. And then you've got the China side, which has gone uninvestigated as well. And as I said, the State Department's burying all this. And, you know, he needs, the president does, a Rich Grinnell still in the administration. Maybe Mr. Ratcliffe can continue to declassify and, frankly, just force the disclosure under law of all these documents that are that frankly, in my view, would disclose corruption like we've never seen before at senior administration levels, namely in the Obama administration.
Where is, by the way, speaking of DNIs, where's Dan Coates these days? I don't read his name. I don't hear from him. Do you suppose he's turned state's evidence? What's going on?
You know, some of President Trump's initial appointments were there just because they were next in line for a job like that. And it was a waste of several years with people like Coates and Tillerson in place. And Pompeo and Barr need to step up, and they need to step up soon in terms of getting this information out. I mean, the prosecutions, you know what I think about the prosecutions, that's almost done in terms of significant prosecutions. That ain't going to happen.
Well, which one? The persecution of General Flynn, or the prosecution of? I'm making a small legal joke.
Yeah, well, you raise a good point because Flynn would have been prosecuted. By
limitation, it has to be a small joke.
Yeah. Well, it's not funny because Flynn would have been prosecuted, but for the intervention of Sidney Powell.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Tom, we got to wrap it up here. A lot to talk about. We will continue the discussion. It's more of a conversation with Tom Fitton, ongoing. We like very much what he and Judicial Watch do, and we like very much having them here to join us for your edification and mine. Thanks so much. Tom Fitton, Judicial Watch.